people have maybe been overreacting to how different a record this new one is? Because
I don't think this album is a betrayal to
Right.
to my previous one. I mean, it's just another path, you know. And I think that I really tried to keep my identity on this album and to keep my sound. Because I think that the people in M83, they just love the sound. So it was important for me to keep that. And but you know, in music, if you're doing always the same thing over and over, you really start to get bored. And I think that repetition is death for me, and I really like to experiment new things and to propose something different to people each time I'm composing an album. So I think it's important for...
I think maybe some of the reaction to people saying Saturdays equals youth is so different is because coming after Digital Shades last year, which was a really ambient record, it is quite different from that one, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. But I mean, Digital Shades is for me more like a side project. Right. Because I always been into ambient music, and Brian Eno is one of my icon, you know, and so I just wanted to do my own ambient record as well. And so Digital Shades is just for me a side project, but even if I'm really proud of it and I really consider Digital Shades like a proper album, but yeah, it's a bit different. I mean, I can work on a Digital Shades album alone in my home studio in Antibes, so I can do everything on my own. Right. And so it's more easier, you know. It's different as a real studio album, right? Because I need to work with producers and to rent a real studio to record everything. It's a different process.
Were you working on that album, Digital Shades, and this album sort of simultaneously or at the same time? Or
I first worked on the Digital Shades album just after the previous American tour, because I was a bit exhausted of this tour, and I just thought it was maybe the good time for me to do a break, and so I just needed something quiet, something quite peaceful, and the best thing was to create an ambient album to do it, and so after that, after the making of this album, it was easy to do another album much more pop and electric and electronic. It was much easier.
Before I get too far away from the tour, let me ask you about the band that you've got out with you this time. This is the first time you've worked with some of these people, right?
Actually, the drummer is playing with me since the previous album.
That's Loïc?
Loïc, yeah, he's playing on Before the Dawn Is Us album, and so he's following me on tour since a long time.
Morgan is new.
Morgan is new, yeah. She has worked on the album because she sings on the album. She has wrote lyrics on the album. So
how did you discover her? She's from a Los Angeles band that some people may know, right?
Yeah, she's from an LA band called the Romanovs, and I was working on a movie soundtrack, and I was looking for a girl's voice for my album, and so the director of this movie told me about Morgan, and when I first heard Morgan's voice, I really had a crush on her voice because she's got this kind of Kate Bush styles in her voice I really love, and she speaks very well French actually, so that's easy. So it was really easy to get in touch with her, and and she knew the project. I mean, she knew M83 before, and she was really keen working with me. And yeah, it's really great. It was really great pleasure for me and a great experience to work with her on this album. She's a great girl. She's got a really wonderful voice and very soft but strong at the same time.
She also does some speaking on the record as well, right?
Yeah,
Talk a bit about that and this sort of like, is it poetry, would you say, that's sort of throughout?
Oh, I don't know. It's since my very first album, I like to use samples from movies, in my music, because my connection to cinema is very strong. But yeah, and we started to write spoken word for the previous album on Before the Dawn Is Us. And so for this one, I just wanted to do more of spoken words. And Morgan, she's got a great, because she's an actress actually. She plays in a lot of movies in LA, and so she's a great actress, and she's got a great voice, and so she wrote the spoken words with my brother and me, and it was really interesting to do that. So the aim of all that was to recreate like a teenage movie scene, you know, from a teenage movie from the 80s.
So this idea that, because I mean I've read several places that you actually sat down and said, okay, I want to create a record that would seem to come from this 80s era of sort of John Hughes films.
Yes.
That's specifically, right?
Yeah, that was the aim, yeah. I mean, so to do that, we just tried to work only with instruments coming from the 80s, like we worked only with analog keyboards, analog synths. We didn't use any computers, I mean, except for the recording, of course. But yeah, the idea was to have like a very 80s sound, but in a modern way as well. I mean, just not only a simple tribute to the 80s music, but I just wanted to make it personal and to keep my identity in it. And it was really important for me to do that. And because I think that music from the 80s is certainly one of the most important periods for the music industry so far, and I really love so many bands coming from this period of music that I thought it was maybe a good idea to do kind of tribute to this period, and I think that my sound is quite close to the sound from the 80s in a way, because it has this kind of dreamy thing and kind of wall of sound as well. So,
and yet this record is probably the sort of most upbeat, brightest take on an 80s informed thing that you've done yet, wouldn't you say? I mean,
oh yes, this is certainly the shiniest album I've ever made. I mean, because there are a lot of pop songs in it, and this is quite new for me to do that. I mean,
was that like a challenge for yourself?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's like in cinema, directors would try to do comedy. It's really difficult, and writing a good pop song is really difficult, and I'm really learning to do that. It's a real challenge to do it. Yeah, I wanted to get more confident with my vocals as well, and I mean, on the previous albums, all the songs were pretty much instrumentals, without any vocals in it, and now I'm singing more and more. So yeah, it's a new challenge, but it's a good thing. I mean, I like to experiment new things.